Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay. I'm here at Lumaprints. I work in the marketing department, and we like to do these webinars every other week just so you guys could be more familiar with us, as well as offering some advice for artists and those who want to sell art or their photography. This week, we'll cover a lot of about the marketing and promotion that a lot of us do not really like, or sometimes promotion is not really your forte and maybe even something you probably don't have the best association with. I'm here to kind of dispel some of the ways we perceive marketing and how to make not only it a fun activity for you, but at least something that you don't get burnt down on. Because ultimately, as creatives and as artists, one wants to focus more on the art and less so on the business side, which is completely reasonable and understandable. And so I kind of want to discuss how you can do that and do what you love, which is art, while also being able to promote yourself and get those sales as needed, but it's not as taxing. Before we get into that, though, I just wanted to also cover that last time we had our webinar, rather, we covered all about Lumaprints shipping and how we, as your print provider, go about shipping, boxing, and having your products arrive from our manufacturing sites here in California and in Louisville, Kentucky, and how they arrive to your customer at their porch. So discussing all things regarding to that, as well as ship times and carriers that we use, as well as some topics and notes about international shipping as well. So if that is of interest to you, we do have it on our Luma Prints YouTube channel. It is now uploaded there, so if you want to check it out, it's there. And while you're there, feel free to subscribe and, click the bell for notification in case you want to see future videos from us. But with that out the way, let's go ahead into today's topic, which is all about self-promoting. And, one could, argue that, you just don't really like marketing at all. But how can we make it a bit more, I would say, digestible for yourself and something that you appreciate and could maybe even grow to enjoy? Not to say that everyone has to enjoy marketing. I say this as a person whose job is to do marketing. I understand it's not for everyone, and especially if you are an artist who wants to dedicate your time to, your craft, to your creative, I would say, creations, or just in general, you just don't really care for marketing. I understand and I get it. Sometimes I myself can get burnt out from marketing of itself because it's a lot of data and it's a lot of putting yourself out there and trying to make sure you capture an audience. And I think where it becomes, I would say, burnt out for a lot of people is that oftentimes it feels inauthentic to yourself. It's so separate from who you are, and like why would I want to like try to sell myself? That's not really what I do. Trying to convince someone that they want to buy my art, it doesn't feel authentic to who I am as a person. And I think that when it comes to traditional marketing, that's what we perceive as like something to have to sell something to someone. But a lot of the times marketing and the way it works with at least artists and selling artwork is that it's a bit more open to authentic interactions because ultimately you're selling a piece of art that can connect to people, or alternatively, you can show people your art is something to connect to. And oftentimes that doesn't rely on you having to actively sell something to someone, but it's really merely trying to showcase your art to someone with your perspective in mind. And that can create a lot of selling power and prowess that I think a lot of artists don't leverage enough. And I'll get a bit more into it. But let me go ahead and share the slides just so you can follow along with me as I go through the topic points. And if you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the chat. If there's something unrelated to the topic at hand, please reserve them for the end of the webinar if you don't mind. See, so let me go ahead and share my screen. One moment, please. Actually, let me reshare that. Sorry. Perfect. All right. So, kind of as an introduction, the first thing I hear oftentimes is like, I didn't sign up to be a business expert when it comes to selling my art. I honestly just thought I could create my art and the art would speak for itself. And that's totally viable. I think many artists sign up to make their art their career path, but sometimes that also has that connotation that, you're monetizing your art at the end of the day. And in order to make your art more profitable, I would say that there is a lot of skills and assets that you need that have less to do with art and more with business and marketing. And oftentimes, if we're being honest, it's not always as appealing, and or it just might be something that you're not very used to. And I don't think that because you're selling your art, you have to be like a business guru by any means. But I do think that you should probably have some skill sets that work for you and that will help you propel your art further and have people really enjoy what you do and enjoy the art that you sell. Um, I feel like when it comes to many creatives, it's a struggle with self-promotion, and it often stems from maybe a fear of rejection or putting yourself out there and not getting the, um, you know, acknowledgement that you were expecting. It could be even like things like imposter syndrome, many topics of which that you could find in other industries, but I feel like it's more apparent when you're an artist just because it is something that is very personal. Art that you make is something that is an extension of you and speaks more to yourself because it involves a lot of personal feelings. You know, if we're to talk about like say my role, it's for me, it's like I'm just sharing my data and my spreadsheets at the end of the day. So that in itself is not too personal to me. So I would say arguably that there is a disconnect between me and the art that I put out. But for artists, it's art that is related to them and their life experiences and something very vulnerable. So putting it out there can feel very intimidating, and that I cannot deny. Um, I think that with all the artists that I've talked to working in this job, whether in person or online, a lot of them are very shy and reserved and, probably don't acknowledge how talented and skilled they are because oftentimes these are the people that I meet and they're so talented and so skilled at what they do, hone their craft over years or even decades. And again, I think it might be just fear of rejection or at the end of the day, having your art perceived by others and trying to sell it. And while I think sometimes the art can speak for itself, it just helps even more so when you could be your own art's advocate, if you will, and an advocate for yourself as an artist at the end of the day. I think that a lot of artists have this perception that self-promotion is try hard or overtly confident. When in the case, I believe that your art, if it has a strong vision, you could really sell it and tell your potential buyers that, this is something you're interested in, this is something you're passionate about. And that in of itself, while it doesn't seem like marketing, it just shows an authentic way of how you care about your art. And in turn, it might show others, hey, this person's really passionate about what they do. And that in itself is very inspiring. And it's something that just gives overall good connotations and associations with your artwork. When someone sees a passionate artist at their craft, it gives a good sense of feeling that they feel confident in their purchase and feel confident that they're buying from someone they enjoy talking to or they enjoy seeing that creative process. I would like to think that a lot of people don't perceive marketing as manipulation, but at the end of the day, some people might see it only by virtue of when we talk about our daily lives and how things are sold to us. Oftentimes, ads and promos are really pushed in our faces and feels more so of like clearly trying to sell you something instead of saying a message. But if we're talking about what marketing can mean for you and its versatility, it could definitely be about spreading your own message through your art, and in conjunction when you're marketing, how can you spread that same message? What you want to do is make sure that your messaging isn't overshadowed by the feeling that you're being trying to sell something. And I think as an artist, it's pretty easy to do so because ultimately you're also showing your passion and care for your art. Um, and I think that it comes with a level of transparency that's needed, and that way it doesn't feel so forced at the end of the day. I think the best way to perceive it is inviting people into your world of what you do for your art. Um, Consider it as like less of promoting your art and see it as how can you make your art more interactive with the audience or people around you, whether that's in person or online. I think there are fun ways to think of art and marketing and how to make it interactive so people connect with it better. Think of QR codes, making interactive installations, writing pieces or having written pieces on your website or on during your galleries that talk more about you yourself or more about the art piece. Even offering merchandise with your art on it in alternative and creative ways would be really cool. Say ceramics or earrings or things of the like. I've seen a lot of artists branch out into other merchandise apart from traditional media that's worked really well with them, and they in turn have been able to bolster their traditional art as a result of selling more, I would say, either budget friendly or more, I would say, commonplace pieces to sell, say, cups, shirts, and the like. And then, of course, if you want to really hone in on what makes it feel like not marketing, but it is marketing, it's honestly just sharing your story. And when you talk to people, it's definitely okay for them to know more about you as a person. As a result of them learning more about you as a person, they connect with you overall, but also connect with your art piece and kind of could put a person to the piece that they're buying from. And that in of itself is an important purchase factor for a lot of art buyers. And as long as you're transparent and authentic to yourself, it's less of a sales pitch and more of a genuine conversation. And this could apply to the people you meet at the galleries that you attend or you host at, or it could even be just posting your milestones on social media. All of these, I would say, transparent and authentic ways of showing yourself goes miles and above as opposed to just trying to, promote and sell your art only. And if we're going to talk about more subvert or more subtle ways to promote without it feeling fake or inauthentic, I think that in itself, marketing shouldn't feel like you're performing. Instead, it should be like, how would you talk to your friend about your art? Or how would you talk to someone who's at the gallery looking at your artwork? How does that conversation look? And how can that be translated into the online sphere, whether it's social media or your own website? I think that one of the best ways is definitely sharing behind the scenes content. And even with the rise of TikTok and Instagram Reels, there is almost like a formula that if you're in like a lot of other artists' like videos and stuff, you'll see that people have a formula to behind the scenes like art um, piece or art videos. And you could go for that formula, sure, but not everyone creates the same, and not everyone has this picturesque place of where they draw and do their art. Not everyone has a studio, for example, and not everyone creates art at 8 a.m. In the morning. Sometimes you're a night owl, as I am, sometimes myself, creating art at like 2 in the morning. Show that process and, be at the end of the day, be real when you make your videos, make it seem as though this is a day in the life of you as an artist and what it's like creating that piece of work. Even if you think that it's underwhelming or it's not as, well produced as other artists as you may see on social media, I still think that it is a strong driving force to drive people into wanting to know more about your art and being inspired by your art so much to be willing to buy it or buy the original or buy a print. Either way, I think that whatever process you do for your art, it's more than okay to share it and to almost, put that as part of the art in of itself, if you will, when it comes to your social media at least. Um, People love the creative process at the end of the day. It's something satisfying to watch. It garners a lot of attention and also just shows to your followers or your audience that, hey, this is an art made by a real person, and it shows authenticity, especially with the rise of AI art. Showing your process is very important now more than ever for a lot of people, and it just helps for at least those who are not a fan of AI art to know that they're promoting and supporting someone who creates real art with real tools and does it authentically. When it comes to telling the story behind the piece as well, it adds a bit more openings for people to connect to your art and what inspired your art, what it means to you when you created this art. Giving a story to your art pieces and as you're creating them gives a lot of people an emotional storytelling, I would say, experience that oftentimes you don't really see in other places. Say you go to an art store that sells art from all over the place. If you sell yourself and your story as well as the story behind your art piece, even if it's in the description, in the video format, or in other means, it could really set yourself apart from other people in a very saturated market because it's more than just the art piece. It's now almost like a totality of a creative project, if you will. And if people see that and they connect to it, they're more inclined to want to buy it. And as for, what, talking about instead of, what my art piece is, say why this art piece is or why it came to be. And it can even be when you're dropping new art, instead of being, saying, "Hey, I have new art, check it out." You can say, "I created this art as a result of this part of my life," or to celebrate this, event or this milestone for myself, I created this. And it just creates personal motives that resonate more with people at the end of the day. And it's gonna give more interaction as well to people to want to comment and give you congrats or share their, good comments towards you when you do bolster and discuss things that are real and vulnerable to your experiences and how they relate to your art pieces. And another subtle way to have promotions without it feeling inauthentic is having happy customers talk about you through reviews, testimonials, photos, and, sometimes it's hard to get those, but when you do get them, for better, best way to say is just, utilize it to its full capacity. When you do get your first review or your handful of reviews, don't be afraid to, rotate them around or share them in other means besides just posting them on social media or keeping them on your website. If someone DMs you saying that they really liked your art piece, ask if they're okay with you sharing this, comment from them with your audience. And most of the time they're comfortable with that. Share it, spread it around, have it as a kind of a response to showing your gratitude to your customers who do offer their feedback or their compliments. It's a way to just incite authenticity and incite a conversation between you and your audience that feels a bit more meaningful than just, um, emojis or that of the like. Um, and then showing up as yourself, lastly, again, you're sharing your journey that is uniquely yours and you're selling products, sure, but it's selling your art that is authentically yours. And when you have a very genuine voice and aren't really necessarily adhering to a script or formula that is not yours, it comes on and or when you do adhere yourself to your own voice and not to other people's voices or other people's scripts or prompts, it just resonates with people a lot more and feels very unique and people resonate with that at the end of the day. Again, marketing is all about kind of tapping into people's emotions and how can we connect people to the products that they're interested in buying. And as an artist, there's a lot of avenues to do so. And one of the which I would say is definitely showing up as who you are authentically and not as someone else or who you want to be. When you look at other people and people might be aspirational to try to drive inspo from, but at the end of the day, you want to definitely stick to who you are because that's what ultimately is going to help you get those sales. And um again, marketing is hard, but being yourself should not be as tricky, or hopefully is a bit more um, less stressful. And speaking of less stressful, let's talk about more about how we can do marketing that feels more natural and something that you can put into your day-to-day life without it feeling so, um, I would say, overwhelming. So one of the things I think I want to kind of stress up upon is definitely that consistency matters more than having a perfect format. If you're posting once in a blue moon and it's a great video, that's fine and all, but it might not yield the same interactions as though if you were to do something where you do it every week or a couple times a week, and it's just you showing videos or sharing photos of a day in your life or something even a bit more casual as opposed to polished. The consistency does matter and it creates a habitat where you can kind of grow a rapport with your audience and without feeling that burnout because you're expecting it to go viral. Sometimes pushing something out without feeling the need that needs to go viral helps you kind of feel a bit better about posting things because now it feels like you're posting on your own social media website as though it's like normal and as though you weren't necessarily selling your art but more so just sharing as though you're sharing amongst your friends. Um, I think a weekly rhythm will help you keep visibility without having to stress out too much. So I would say dedicate a couple hours once a week to marketing or promoting. And it doesn't, again, have to mean that you're selling, but it's honestly, what can I share on my social media that's related to my artwork or related to me as an artist? And again, consistency. Those 2 hours, schedule a couple of posts or 3 posts for the week and have them kind of trickle out every couple days. That's a great way to start off, especially if you don't know where to start. I would say 2 to 3 posts a week. Work on them for a couple hours starting on Sunday or Monday and have them trickle out on the peak days that you know a lot of your customers or audience members will be at. That's a great way to start. I would say keep the writing short, and it doesn't necessarily always have to be something having to sell something to someone. Call to actions, if you will. Keep it conversational, again, like as though you're talking to a longtime friend about your art. And sometimes the captions that are short but relatable are often the ones that are more engaging. And as long as you're also friendly to your audience when they comment, feel free to comment back, give them hearts, show that you're interested in their commentary towards you as well. And it will only bolster more people to comment when they see you commenting back on other people's comments. Um, I think including personal updates or art progresses and newsletters is also a great way to showcase more about yourself without always having to feel like, oh, I have to figure out what to sell something if I want to post or send a newsletter out. More so if you get into the habit of having a weekly or biweekly newsletter, and it could be just small little tidbits about your art or something that you're working on, giving small updates, it gives people a sense of like community and sense of connection and it'll very much help in the long run, I would say. Speaking of like that scheduling and making sure that you are consistently putting out posts without it feeling like you're getting burnt out, scheduling posts can be done either on the websites themselves or they can be used with apps like Buffer or Later. So consider using these as means to like be able to just create the posts, have them ready for publishing, but using your schedule later post options or using these apps, you can have them ready and they'll just shoot out so you don't have to worry about them for the rest of the week and you can focus more time on your art. Again, we're trying to minimize the marketing part while maximizing your time to enjoy your art and also not, again, feel that burnout because it's not going to be as intense. It's a matter of just posting 3 posts. You can even do a thing where it's like one that's more thoughtful and two that are more casual when it comes to the posting style. Also, don't be afraid to reuse old content. Oftentimes, only a certain percentage of your audience will actually see your posts every time you post it. So even if you reuse or rehash some old content that you've done in the past that you knew did well, or you notice that it didn't get as much traction, try posting it again and you might get a different feedback because honestly, our algorithms are really fickle and they're unpredictable. So one time you could post and it'll get no traction. Another day you'll post and it might get a lot of interactions. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to reuse old content, especially when there is maybe a time in your career where you're doing a lot of art and you're not looking to spend too much time on marketing. Feel free then to utilize old content that was worked for you and something that you can just post easily without having to stress out too much about it. Consider adding new captions or seasonal context to make it feel a bit more fresh too. I would say having templates and cheat sheets would help you a lot. And these are ones that you would create for yourself that feel very you or very, I would say, aligned with your art aesthetic. But definitely keep things like templates from Canva or other, you know, uh, websites that help you create items. Definitely utilize them to have templates and formats that you know will work and ones that you can easily just put in your image and then post. Um, and then when inspiration does strike and you have a energy to market something with a specific visual in mind, feel free to deviate from your usual templates or copy sheets and put that as a priority because at least this is something that you're passionate about. Say there's a promotion for a specific type of gallery that you're interested in and you want to sell the art related to that because the messaging behind it is strong. Feel free to kind of take time out of your day, even more so to spend more time on that. And at the end of the day, if you really just don't like social media or working with social media or content creation, then figure out when it's worth it and when it's not worth it to outsource. I find that some artists rely on friends, family, and or they hire people to help them out with captioning, emails, creating videos, and things of that. Um, there is a plethora of freelance writers online and as well as marketing and website experts who can help you either once and you'll be good to go, or they can help you out regularly with posts. So don't be afraid to ask for help and or also look to see if outsourcing this help for marketing and promotion is something viable for you. I think once you start with a platform that you enjoy at least though, it's worth testing the waters there to see how you like. Say you're a frequenter of Instagram or Twitter, now formerly known as or now known as X. See what platforms you yourself enjoy being on and how do you do in those platforms when you start promoting and discussing more about your art. Does that in turn, do you notice what works? Do you see a video or photo content does stronger one more than the other? What gains more attraction, casual messaging versus more formal messaging? Utilize your favorite social media platform as a way to test a lot of ways that you can resonate with people. And by using that and looking at analytics, you can then in turn start using it to create a framework for other platforms should you want to move into another social media platform or website overall. But yeah, I think that's about it from here. So let me go ahead and go right into the Q and A's. And let me start with someone that wants to talk about photo or print quality. If you do have questions, do let me know in the chat. I'll have that open as well. But this person came and asked, their name is Annette, and they asked, how do you adjust print color for better print quality? And it is a rather vague question, but I do want to answer and offer some tips. Note that at the end of the day, that each image is different and unique and shot and scanned with varying qualities of lighting and of camera settings or scanners. And so I really do think at the end of the day, it is a two-part protocol for your images to look really good. The first part is always how do you capture the image well? And I do have a video, which is webinar 3, that is all about how you can set your prints up for success or your print files rather. And over there, I go over how to successfully capture your images and then how to do some minor tweaks and edits. But here in particular, this person's asking about color. And just as kind of a caveat, note that this accounts for color correcting images of art. Um, Photography is a different ballpark. I would say that, you might need to look up more into that. However, do note that for photography images, most photographers are color grading themselves, the images, and so they are effectively colored a certain way to elicit a mood, or it's to show a color scheme, or it's their creative avenue and how they decide to color grade their photography. So this is more so for captures of art that people have taken of. So let me go ahead and share my Photoshop and we could cover it. So I grabbed this image from a website that does free license or copyright-free imagery. This artist, clearly talented, has some really amazing artwork, and I love their use of color here. But what I notice is that their color here is fairly yellow. And the reason why I'm able to make a note that it is on the yellow side is because when I have the color picker here, and I click on one of the lighter shades here, I notice that it's a strong yellow, and it almost creates an overcast, if you will. And say I'm the artist, but I'm not, just to let you know, I'm not. But say I am the artist and I want to make my art pure, a bit more color corrected to what I see in person. And say, let's say in person, the paint color that they used for this area wasn't yellow, but in fact was white. So if they were using white and their paint, but the capture appears yellow, which happens very often when you take photos inside, by the way, just for your reference. Um, what you want to do is color correct it once it's in Photoshop or other platforms that allow you to color correct as I'm going to do right now. This is my quick and easy way to do it. Of course, if you were to do it yourself, the way that I'm going to show you, it's one way, but do keep in mind that you need to look at the other colors as well. So you can't just hone in on the color white. The reason why I specify on white and stress that is because it's the easiest one to notice when the color is off. Because when you color correct it and you look at the color that results from it, you'll notice that, let's see, let me just move this real quick. You'll notice that the color in the color selector is a yellow color instead of what would have been white if you see it in person. So my quick and easy way to do this is to go into my layers, click a new layer, and here you'll have layer one and your original image down here. Click on layer one, and using the paint bucket tool, after we color pick the lightest shade um, in the image, which we're going to assume is the white color. So there's my yellow. Let me choose a lighter portion. Let me see if I could find it. I think that's like right here. If not, it's going to be right here. Sometimes you have to look for it because there's going to be varying colors of yellow. I think that's the lightest we'll go. So I open up the new layer. I have the color in hand. I use the paint bucket tool to color the whole image. So this is in the separate layer, by the way, just stressing that out so you don't override some of your original artwork. This is layer one. Going here, I would go in here and these are your filters and you have different filters here. I'm going to go to divide. Divide is going to separate that color away from the image and it's going to give us a true white. And so, again, this only works if you're trying to get the lightest color that you assume is white. If the original backdrop color is not white, then this is not going to work. But this is what I do to get a true to color, or as best true to color as I want. And I'm looking at this and it looks great and all. A big difference from the original. And me as the artist, if I had the artwork with me in person, I would make note that maybe it's a bit too stark for my liking. Maybe it's too bright, or the colors are a little off. So from there, I mess with opacity. I mess with going to a lighter shade from the same color family. But in this case, I'm going to go down to 80. Just or 75. Yeah, let's do 75 because that feels a bit more natural to me than 100%. And it feels like the colors are a bit more viable. And as you can see, it looks a lot better if you're looking to have your image color corrected for this. This is the easiest way, but as you can check online with other sources, there's other ways you can also color correct your images for print. But this is just one of my suggestions. So many ways to do it for many different applications, and every person's image is not going to be the same. So take this as kind of a easy and quick way to do it for most art pieces, but it's not applicable to everything. So let me stop sharing that, and we could proceed with the rest of the questions. Let's see. Now, Aldo asked, how about other means of marketing like Meta ads, Google ads, email newsletters? Um, and can there be another webinar or series of them? Sure. I believe in the past we have covered Meta ads and Google ads and email marketing, but I'm down to do a bit more of a deep dive in how you can do so. I have some familiarity with Google marketing or Google ads and analytics, so that's where my bread and butter is, but more team is more than welcome to kind of do some research on that to create a webinar for this. So thank you for the suggestion, Aldo. Um, when it comes to marketing using traditional, I would say, means of going into Google Ads or other ad sites, say social media ads, um, I think that there is a bit more complexity to that. And if you hate marketing, this is very much a marketing heavy focused one. And maybe it requires you to kind of work with someone who's a bit more experienced with it because it's not just hitting key terms, but it's also talking to someone who has a different perception of your art and how that can be perceived by the audience member. When you're putting ad dollars to it, it can be a bit more, I would say, intense and more intricate, but ultimately it is doable, especially as an artist. You're more than welcome to use those ads and leverage that. I think there are other ways you could also think about it too. If you want to consider selling your art on other platforms, say you collaborate with bigger e-commerce stores to do so, that's another way. Um, the point is, marketing is a huge and vast topic that I only covered a small portion of, and it was a bit more relevant to social media and personal and your personal social media rather as well. But when it comes to Google Ads and email newsletters and also Meta ads, these become a bit more intricate and a lot more detailed. But I'm more than happy to cover that in the next topic for sure. So thank you. Do we offer artist spotlights in your social media sites like Instagram or YouTube? And we do offer some on our newsletters as well as sometimes on our YouTube as well as on our website. We are working to spend more time on our marketing for social media these days. So you might see an artist spotlight. So if you're interested in being part of that, feel free to reach out to us at marketing@lumaprints.com. Just let us know that you're interested in being part of the artist spotlight as well as sharing, your story and or your images. So feel free to do so. We're always open to figuring and hearing people and specifically artists that we work with. So, great question. Thank you, Sika. Here are some more questions that we got from our Google Forms. So, let me help answer those as well. Lars asked, should we focus on just one channel and nail it? Or do we spread our efforts over multiple channels when building social media and promoting the online gallery? And ultimately, I think it boils down to testing and analytics. It's safe to start with two or three social media platforms and as a starting point. And if you're a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of three, then just go with two. And it's good to start creating content for both of them and making small tweaks to make sure they're a bit more relevant to their respective social media website when you're starting off. And then once you start noticing one taking more um, or one having more interactions than the other, say there's more comments, there's more views on one than in comparison to the other, then start investing more time in the one that's yielding more results. And how can you improve on that? So maybe at the beginning, start with 50% on your social media platforms that you're testing on, review the analytics on a weekly basis, and from there start figuring out, okay, well, I want to spend actually 80% of my time on the website that's giving me more interactions and 20% on the one that's not yielding as much. That's one way to go about it. And that's my suggestion because what you don't want to do is put all your eggs in a basket and losing opportunity where you could see growth in other platforms that you wouldn't know of, especially when people themselves focus 100% on one social media platform that just is not yielding those results. You could be losing opportunity on finding results elsewhere. So that's why I like doing this method of doing kind of starting out all across the board and then honing down as you notice things based off data and analytics itself, showing you what is a more viable option for you to focus your efforts on. So great question there, Lars. Thank you. Lisa asked, are we offering, sorry, are you working on offering seamless online ordering, that is backend extensions or way to connect our websites for streamlined ordering processes? So we do offer integrations right now directly with Etsy, Shopify, WooCommerce, as well as direct integration using API, as well as integration with ShipStation. So we have plenty of ways you can connect with us and make the online ordering a lot easier. In addition to this, we're also working on improving a way to bulk map your products using Excel. And this will be our next phase of how you can bulk map with us. And this will be something that we'll be promoting a bit more later in this year when we have a bit more refined Excel sheet to work with and for you guys to be able to bulk map all at once for ease. This is something we're working towards and hopefully something you guys could look forward to. So thank you for that. Libby asked, is a photo of an original artwork okay to use as the original file, or is it best when they're scanned? So I think what they're asking is if it's better to take a photo or to scan an image. And I will say that scanning and capturing images are both very valid ways to digitize your art, especially as you get into large prints. It's going to be harder to scan these, and it's not always viable to scan them. So you will have to capture them with a camera. So, to add to that as well, not all scanners are built for art scanning because oftentimes they're built to scan documents, and especially the at-home ones, they're not going to always have the right specs to capture your image. So, one, you have to make sure that they can capture 300 dpi, and two, they can import your image as a PNG or as an image file. PDF can work sometimes, but do keep in mind it could get a little tricky when it comes to embedded profiles with those. So while scanning is a very valid way, capturing is just as valid and oftentimes the one that people usually use. In relation to that, Wendy did ask for DPI, what do you recommend for printing? 300 DPI is great, 200 DPI is acceptable. Anything lower than that can get a little tricky, but let me discuss that DPI is a very intricate topic. I only say this because you can have a high DPI but still have a grainy photo. So you do have to make sure when you're working with DPI, if you zoom in on your image and it's starting to look grainy, then that is an indicator that you have a low quality image. So if your image is a high DPI and it's a high in resolution and you could zoom in just as fine, then know that then it's a good high quality image. What I like to do personally is I like to do the ruler method, which I will share later. If I post this video, I'll share it in the link above. But the ruler method essentially allows for you to measure what your digital file looks like using a real-time ruler and using the online ruler or the screen ruler as your reference. So as long as you align your inches one by one, then it's going to result in you being able to view art as though it were printed to review the quality of your image. And then what's the best color profile for your printing? We work out of Adobe RGB. Different printers work out of different color profiles. Some work out of CMYK. Personally, because we work with Epson printers and Epson inks, Adobe RGB is the one that you want to use and make sure your images are converted to. We convert them regardless of what image profile you give to us, but if you want to see what your image is going to look like when printed, if you convert them to Adobe RGB beforehand, then you'll know what it will look like. So I hope you answered your questions there, Wendy. And so when it comes to scanning versus capturing, scanning is a great option. Taking a photo is just as viable. Just best look up on some tutorials and which I do offer in webinar 23 or not 23, sorry, webinar 3, and how you can capture those images either going outside using neutral lighting or using some lighting fixtures to help create a very centered and a well color graded image of your art. And if you want nice digitized art, but you're not that savvy when it comes to cameras, or say, you're limited to not having cameras, one, it's worth checking with your local library. This is just my personal advice as someone who loves supporting libraries. They sometimes have really good quality photography cameras at your library that you could rent out temporarily, and then, you could take a image of yourself, of the art, or alternatively, you can also work with colleges and or work with local studios, photography studios, and work with them to have your images captured. Of course, they may ask for a small fee, but it's something willing to do if, say, you don't have the means or the workshop or the place to take those photos. Um, but those are some options in which you could digitize your images. So hopefully that was of help to you. Um, Someone asked, if they're okay, so the question is, do we plan on offering custom packaging for those who sell a lot of prints? At the moment, we do not offer custom packaging for any customers at the moment, and this is because we primarily focus on creating quality prints at prices that make sense for you and your customer, as well as offering packaging that is not only safe but very efficient for the bottom line. So do keep that in mind. It's not to say that we won't do custom packaging in the future, but at this point in time, for our customers' budgets and for us to really hone in on quality and also pricing, we just don't offer custom packaging at this point in time. It might change in the future, but for now, that's what we have. Thomas asked, can you create some general user-generated content type for your frames and canvases? So, relevant to that, we are working on content right now that is revolved more on our products, such as video and photos. We already have set footage and imagery. You just need to reach out to us, and we'll offer that very happily so. But we are also in turn looking to update some of those images and footages so you guys have some more up-to-date stuff if you ever want to use those for your website or share them on your social media for yourself. But I think that's about it. Those are all the questions Ellie shared in the chat and also here in the Google form. Thank you guys for asking said questions, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this video or this webinar rather. If you have any more questions, do let me know. Otherwise, I am gonna close off the webinar, and from there, if I'll still leave the chat open in case you have any lingering questions. But for now, it's goodbye. I'll see you in the next webinar. Thank you guys for coming and have a good day. Bye.